So, hi and welcome. I'm Dale and this is Mel, and today is Mel's birthday, and you can see that her special tiara says happy birthday. So join me in wishing Mel a happy birthday. Now we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more serious than birthday cake. The birthday cake or things that we sabotage ourselves might actually come into it. So in our normal style, I'm going to tell you a little tale about me. So when I discovered that I had a fractured spine, I read all of this stuff that said you should eat this, you should eat that, don't eat this, don't have that, make sure you have lots of this, shovel all this in your mouth, all sorts of advice. And the one piece of advice that I really took on board was about eating kale. Please don't ask me why. So I ended up with
it's so 2019, isn't it?
Oh,
Okay.
darling, it's very in, very, very fashionable, a little bit like me, looking very fashionable. So kale was my thing. Now, I really did go over the top. I had kale in my smoothie. So I made a smoothie in the morning, and I saved a bit of it to have as dessert with my banana bread and other things in the evening. Then at lunchtime, I'd make a delicious salad or some soup, and now go on, guess the magic ingredient.
Kale.
Then for dinner, I would have, it begins with K, I bet you can't guess.
Cabbage.
No, that's a cur.
Curly cup.
Curly cup.
Kale. Don't tell me it's kale.
Yes, the only thing I didn't have kale in was my supper. But I mean, I'm making light of it, but I became fairly obsessed with my diet, as you know, and I took a certain amount of supplements. Every meal was planned within an inch of its life to make sure that there was a balance of good nutrition. And I would say after about 18 months, I thought, you know what, if I never see another piece, that's my special witch's tail, by the way, if anyone's wondering. I'm not really a human. And why do our dogs do this to us?
You said you weren't going to show everyone your tail today.
I know, but it's a curly kale tail. So I literally, after about 18 months, I got to the point and I thought, you know, if I ever see another piece of kale again, I think I'm going to vomit. And also, what I noticed was the kale that I was buying in the supermarket, because I couldn't get it fresh, because obviously all food is seasonal. The stuff that came in the bags was pretty disgusting. So I justified it to myself that I wouldn't eat it. But then what I did is I literally said, I can't do this eating like a lunatic all the time. And I did feel crazy. So I mean, I'm using those words in a way that that I felt about myself, that I was being completely over the top. So I did do something very naughty. I went on a massive self-sabotage rampage. Now I don't eat chocolate. So I occasionally eat raw chocolate, but not very often. I don't eat shop-bought chocolate. And I went on a massive rampage. And for 2 weeks, I don't know how many bars of chocolate I bought, but I ate and ate and ate till I literally bled. And I would go to the fridge and I would eat a little bit, and then I'd walk away and come back and eat some more. And by the end of the day, honestly, these big bars of chocolates, I'd scoffed so many of them. And for me, eating such a high level of sugar, all I did was itch. And I allowed that to happen. It was like, I'm going to beat you up for being so angelic. Because you've made my human eat all this green curly kale. What I'm going to do is I am going to sabotage you. So for 2 weeks I did that. And then I got back on track. I decided not to eat kale. So instead I had cauliflower greens. I had lots of broccoli. And this is how I'm currently eating. And I am actually waiting for my eco-veg lady to deliver me some kale, because I'm now looking forward to it. And I do really enjoy kale. I like it in all kinds of different ways. But I'm eating lots of green stuff. I don't have any of the sugar in my diet, none of that stuff. And I think I said to you that recently I'd had an emotional upset, and I stood in the kitchen and just went, I can go across to Kath's house and I can eat all her chocolate. I can eat all their Haribos, and chose not to, because I have this memory. And literally, you might as well have just got bars of chocolates and just gone like, because that's literally what I did. I just hoovered it up. And so it's very curious why I would do that to myself. And I'm sure that you come across this a lot in your practice. People who I know, given what that did to me, I will never do it again. And obviously, I had that great big temptation just recently. I'll never do it again. But for some people, it's a cycle, isn't it? Eat well, self-sabotage. So why is that, Mel? Why do people do that?
Oh, let's begin with the eat well bit, because I think often when we begin something, we are, as human beings, we're quite all or nothing. So at the beginning, it's quite exciting. It's new. It's like, right, I'm doing something constructive and positive. So it's like, I'm going all in. Hence the sort of bubba gub shrimp, isn't it? Grill them, bake them, fry them, eat them. Every way in which you can a certain food, you think, right, I'm doing great things with this, because we have this idea that, particularly when it comes to something natural, and that could be, fresh kale. It could be like a herbal supplement or a nutritional supplement. We believe it's doing us good, and it will be doing us good. But then we think more is better, and more is better, and that then sends us on this obsessive pathway that I've got to think about this all the time. And the challenge is when we set ourselves a task, and we often make it very rigid. Or, when we're following a diet plan, usually it's very structured. And we then fall into that trap of, well, I'm in it for all or nothing now, and I've got to do it 100%. And then we get more preoccupied with thinking about this flipping kale all the time. And of course, that's not sustainable, is it?
No.
You can't eat kale. Well, this is what happened. You did. But the logical head, the logical thought will be thinking, you can't eat kale for breakfast, lunch and dinner and snack on it. Like, I'm thinking, did you start to turn green? It's, these things these sort of come into my head because, of course, the novelty wears off and then we get quite bored with it. And then it's like, oh, dear God, I can't face this again. And so this idea of self-sabotage can come in for all sorts of different reasons. And it might be because you kind of know in your head that you're not going to be able to keep this up. And so actually, if you can control your own failure, it feels better than kind of being blindsided by it and then thinking, you wake up and it's like, oh no, it hasn't do it. So I can't do it anymore. So by taking control of that failure process, by going into the chocolate, that's your subconscious going, yeah, you're not going to do this. So let's just quit now, and then we can blame it on the chocolate. We can blame it on a particular behavior rather than necessarily taking responsibility for the fact that you kind of probably went into it too deep.
Well, I see, in retrospect, I know that I did. And I know that a lot of people who have been told that they have something, it's all fear-based.
Yeah.
And so as I came out of that, and, I was no longer fearful. I had good results. Everything was going well. Actually, what triggered me to be even to realize that I'd gone, I'm still eating a great diet, lots of different vegetables, just not very much green stuff. Because honestly, every time I looked at green, it was like, ooh, really just don't want it. I had a recent blood result that showed my calcium had gone down. And I know that that was for not it wasn't because I was not eating kale. I know that. If anyone's looking at me and thinking, well, that's a silly woman. No. I realised it wasn't because I'd given up kale and kale was paying me back. There were some other reasons, because I was working on something else that my doctor had asked me to look at. But it's having those triggers, those wake-up calls that I think are so important. And that's where, having a food and mood diary comes in handy, because actually you can see it all recorded that says, I'm going south when I really want to go north. So
Yeah, and
And
you can look at the bigger picture, can't you?
Yeah.
In that respect, and because often we forget, because life carries on and we're busy, we've sort of forgotten the feelings that we've had, in the last couple of days, particularly when we've got over something in terms of maybe having a slump. You get over that, and you don't want to kind of dwell on that necessarily. So you kind of move forward. So you lose track of, your eating habits and how you are feeling in that particular time.
And it's, if there's one thing I've learned is to really stay in touch with that awareness. So is really looking at what I'm eating and why I'm eating it. I mean, I think I said to you the other day, I don't think I can't remember the last time I ever looked inside the fridge for an answer to life's troubles. I opened the fridge and I was staring and I'm thinking, I started laughing. I was like, what am I doing looking in the fridge? Because the answer to whatever is not inside my fridge. And
but wouldn't it be great if it was?
So I think I was looking for a little box that said "Open me." The truth to the universe is in this box. Honestly, I was standing there and I was thinking, why? But recording my thoughts, my feelings, my level of energy, what I'm eating, and I don't weigh anything, and I don't scribble down. Like some people have, like all the nutrients and all that. I don't do any of that. I just literally, how did I feel? Scribble. What was my energy like? How am I sleeping? What's going on around me? Because I journal in lots of different ways. It makes you so aware, and then you can pick up those moments of self-sabotage.
Absolutely. And I think I don't believe in using trackers. But monitor calories or food intake and nutrients, because exactly that, they completely disconnect you from your body, because only you know how how hungry you are. Only you know kind of what it is that you're feeling at that moment. And again, in terms of looking at a journal, you're tracking trends. And the other reason that we self-sabotage is often just out of familiarity, because we've gone through these cycles again and again. And quite often we'd rather choose familiar and consistency over happiness, even though it feels uncomfortable. So in terms of looking at that over, a whole month, where you've got a whole sort of cycle of weeks, then you can actually, again, you're able to pick up those clues to identify and go, oh, but look, I did that 3 weeks ago. Or I did that last month. This is a repeating pattern. And as soon as you've got that picture of that repeated pattern, you can find out what the triggers are. And then you can look at reframing things and switching that over. And the other thing about it, I was just thinking, sorry, I was just going to say, in terms of this mood thing, how we feel is so important. And many of us don't often feel very comfortable just feeling, and to note down our moods, ideally without judgment, these are emotions and experiences. Again, this can raise often one of the biggest questions in self-sabotage, which is around your self-worth. Because if we don't value ourselves, if we question our emotions and feel that we shouldn't be feeling in certain ways, actually the most common reason to self-sabotage is because we don't feel that we deserve to feel better, to get well again. We don't deserve that success. And that's where, again, that journal can become hugely powerful.
It's journaling, I always say that journaling has saved my life in many situations. And certainly with the discovery of a fractured spine, that was what a lifesaver that I already had that habit. For me, writing down, all of my research, what I ate, how I felt, just everything about me and my life went into my journal, and it genuinely felt like although it's a two-way thing, you write it and you reflect on it. It saved my life having just that book and being able to put it all in there. And since I've met you, my awareness has, in terms of noticing more things that I felt that, well, I should have known that. And you've said something and I go, oh yeah. You know, like the recent emotional upset that I had, I actually sat down and said, what am I going to eat to actually bring some calm and peace to my body? Now, how many people would actually take that time out to go, I'm feeling upset, let's eat something calm. It's like, I'm feeling upset, let's have a pint of lager or a glass of wine and a box of chocolates. And I think that comes back to what you said, is that familiarity thing. And you also said something absolutely brilliant last time we talked about stopping.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's such an amazing journey.
Because when you're in those moments, in terms of you're in the moment of, you know, angst, stress, whatever that emotion is, you often can't see the wood for the trees.
No.
And therefore that's when these automatic habits kick in, because habits are literally things that we don't think about.
No.
So that idea of pausing and stopping and just breathing. And now my go-to is I need to brain dump. I need to get this out, because that kind of just helps ground me and refocus me. And I had a conversation with a lady yesterday, because I encourage my clients to journal more so than I've ever done before now. And she was like, yeah, but she was frightened of what could come out because there was so much stuff in there. She was like, I could write a book. And I was like, well, then you should get it out, because it's serving you no purpose being trapped in there. So sometimes I understand there is reticence and there is fear about committing to pen to paper and seeing what comes out, because it is kind of the unknown. But that's where the magic happens.
It's hell of an adventure. And I think I've said to you before, my journaling is very different. I burn my journals, so I wait for, you know, full moon, and it's about finding the ones that need to be let go of and burned. But if I had read my journals from, say, 10, 15 years ago, honestly, I probably would be crying, reading what this woman felt like in the life that she felt trapped in, with people who weren't very pleasant. And I don't want to read that stuff anymore. So my journaling is very different. But of course, when you first start out, what comes out is, it's raw. It's guttural. You know, it's sewerage, it's gunge. But, you know, we need to get that out, because in all of that mess, we can actually plant some really lovely seeds and watch ourselves grow into the people that we are. We just, like you say, you can't see the wood for the trees. So if we understand that when the process starts, it's gungy, it's dirty, it's raw, you know, you'll read stuff and you'll want to cry again. And you need support systems. You need support around you, good family, good friends, you know, maybe you need a counsellor, you know, whatever it is, you know, if maybe your diet's not good, a nutritionist, but we need those support systems to help us stabilize while we're bringing that stuff up. And what's also important is not to live in the past, because although all that stuff has gone on, to me, that's an encyclopedia. We can dip into it and go, so let's say something triggers us today, and we go to the bottle of wine and we swig the wine and eat the chocolates and order the takeaway, and then sit there going, oh dear, I wish I hadn't done that. Actually, you know, in terms of that encyclopedia, the stuff from the past, you can see where it's come from. You can see the roots of your behavior. And because then you understand and you go, oops, did it again. What do I now need to do to make sure perhaps it doesn't happen so often? Or maybe instead of reaching for a glass of wine, I'll have a hot chocolate with a bit of Baileys in. So, you know, it's having that opportunity to observe. But it's immensely powerful. And I don't think I could live my life without having that pen and paper to scribble all that stuff down. So yeah,
then you have the chance to experiment, don't you? And again, there's often a lot of fear around that, because it's sort of, will it work? Is it the right thing? Should I be doing this? But and you know, you've got to try. Trial and error is kind of the way forward. It all seems really vague and fluffy, but that is what gets you to find out what works or not.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, you talked about habits earlier, and it's a great habit to get into that journaling, that stopping, that self-awareness, and making much more conscious choices. And that's something that we really encourage on the 28 Days to a New You program, is about raising that awareness, opening your eyes, and then starting to make choices about how we change the habits. So the 28 days to, sorry.
I say, and working out a plan in which you don't try and change too much.
Oh God, absolutely.
Because that's steps. What we do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, we go back to the all or nothing and repeat the same process.
That's me. And I've done that every time I've been ill, or every time something has happened. It's like I just go a million times into it, and I've learned that that's not. It's actually now baby steps. We just do one little bit at a time. So 28 Days to a New You is split into 4 sections. Well, it's actually split into 5, because we kickstart with that kind of like setting goals. What do you want to create? And when we talk about those things, it's not this massive goal that's unachievable. It's like, what can we do in the next 28 days that's going to give us just that little baby step forward? And then we look at mindset. We look at how we hydrate ourselves, bring juiciness to our lives, how we nourish ourselves, which is Mel's hydration and nourishment is your big thing. And my favorite one is always decluttering. So I love the declutter, and I love the photos when people say, I've been in the kitchen and look at all this stuff I've got rid of. So people really do, don't they? It's like massively interesting.
And you can find out the people that have sort of OCD type tendencies because their cups are all facing a certain way, or things in their cupboards are like lined up. Yeah. Very telling.
I'm not going to hold my trident up and say that's me. So if 28 days is something that resonates with you, Mel and I work together as a team, and all of us on the program collaborate together to support each other. And every time we've run this, people really do support each other. It's an absolute joy to have the group and just to see those lovely changes that each person makes in a different part of their life. So our invitation is for you to come and join us. There'll be the URL just down below, and have a look at the website and come and join us for 28 Days to a New You.
Amazing. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you join us.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.